This is going to be a condensed podcast form version of a lot of my health content that I've done recently in the past year, thrown together with some additional editor notes thrown in. So please enjoy and give it a full watch or listen. It has watchability or listenability, if that's a word, value either way. Lots of extremely valuable information in this. It's paramount that we know the enemy's weapons so we can avoid them as much as possible. It's easier said than done, and you definitely can avoid them all. However, it's without a shadow of a doubt extremely advantageous to know about them. And before I get into all the specific details, always the utmost important thing you can do is pray. Pray for protection and for the Father to cover you with his spiritual hedges to protect you from these modern weapons of evil and the devil. Because trust me, they are everywhere. Endocrine disruptors and xenoestrogens, as they're sometimes called, and microplastics too, which also fall into the xenoestrogen category, have basically permanently infiltrated our food, air, and water. Until the new heaven and earth, I don't see them going away. However, the Father is literally the ultimate miracle maker. I'm sure with just a wave of his hand, he could have obliterated all from us. But we don't know his exact plan in that regard. But they will be obliterated at one time or another. However, right now, we literally have to live in a toxic soup of them. Ever since I was half my age, I despised the scent of chemicals, perfumes, household cleaners. I've been using the natural stuff for half my life. And just a quick tip in that regard, it's amazing what you can do with just some baking soda, vinegar, and they do sell very affordable, natural, unscented soap products, or I'll even buy the odd one that's naturally scented with, like, say, sweet orange essential oil. It's not that I don't like scents. I actually really like essential oils. The Almighty Father programmed us to be able to spot, like, pheromones from, like, specific genetic diversity. Those pheromones, to be able to subconsciously detect the right partner with who's basically the most genetically diverse to you, is an ideal mating strategy that the Most High God programmed into our bodies. Ensuring that your partner is genetically diverse to you and not closely related is ideal for strong, vigorous offspring. And the Almighty God in all his wisdom programmed that into us. But now, with all the perfumes and colognes and deodorants, it's messing all of that up, and we can't really detect as well as we could. I'm not going to say at all, but not as well as we could. And the birth control messes that up big time too. I hate to use this as an example, but this is the example that they did research into. And apparently, let's just say exotic dancers, when they use a birth control pill, all in all, their extra income, their tips for the month, stayed at a low baseline a low straight baseline below what the dancers without the birth control made. However, there was no straight line with the girls who didn't take the birth control. When they were ovulating, that's when their tips always peaked significantly for the month. So all the degenerates in the establishment that were tipping these ladies could tell a difference. It's all subconscious, but all in all, there is a difference, and that was the measured variable in that regard. However, yeah, I despise chemicals. Bounce sheets, or whatever you call those different brands of dryer sheets, those are incredibly high in toxic endocrine disrupting chemicals. Endocrine disrupting means it messes up your hormones, and your hormones is what makes you feel alive and full of vitality. when you have the proper balance of them and proper ratios. And don't even get me started on fabric softener and Tide and yeah, Mr. Clean, Pine Sol, any of that stuff, man. You should avoid it like the plague.
Looky here, sweetheart. Don't mop with dirty water again, Pine Sol. It's a special formula. Only Pine Sol Cleaner has it, and you need it.
You can make your own little base cleaner with some vinegar and some natural soap. And as I said, you could add some essential oils or buy the ones with essential oils already added. Sweet orange is a good one. Anything citrus is good too. Lime is incredible. Lime makes a great house spray too. Incredibly invigorating and helps with focus. And if you have any neighbors that smoke the wacky tobacco, it cuts the scent of that too. Yeah, here in Canada we have a Shoppers Drug Mart, and I walked into one of those the other night, and you have to walk into the perfume section, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt like I was suffocating. I actually gave my poor last girlfriend SHIT whenever she came over and gave her didn't mean to give her a hard time, but it probably annoyed her quite a bit that like I could smell the Tide on her clothes. I was just like, you reek like Tide. But speaking of like OCD, you can't go too crazy and overboard. I'm probably like the extreme of being extreme and overboard, but kind of sane at the same time. Like, you gotta draw the line. Like, for me, there was a choice between tap water and bottled water. Like, I could pay for a reverse osmosis system, which is definitely something I'll have to do eventually. But if it comes to buying fluoride-free plastic bottled water, I go with that. There's definitely microplastics in there, and I don't even want to look it up because I don't want it to invade my mind while I'm drinking water. It's delicious water. It's fluoride-free. Between the two evils, it's better that than tap water, in my opinion. There's probably more microplastics in the tap water anyhow. I do have some mixed fabrics that are like half cotton and half polyester. Like, the polyester is terrible, especially when you dry it, and then it's basically just like plastic gas fumes coming off the stuff when you take it out of the dryer. It's the battle of both evils. It's either you leave it in there to cool off and then everything is wrinkled, or you take it out while it's still hot and you're breathing in plastic fumes. I have a few pairs of linen shorts and linen shirts, but they look terrible. And good luck filling your whole wardrobe with that stuff. Costs a fortune now. If you're buying tomato sauce, it's probably preferable, well, it's definitely preferable to buy it in a glass container. Some cans are fine. You'll know just by opening the can. If you're not sure and something's on sale or something, don't buy a dozen. Just buy one and see if there's a white lining in there or if it's just tin. If it's just metal inside, the can should be fine. But at any rate, anything you can buy in a glass jar is preferable. Don't heat plastic. Definitely don't put plastic in the microwave. Don't even own a microwave if you can. I've never owned a microwave. Ever since I've moved out of my parents' house in my early 20s, I've never had a microwave. You can go without it. Toaster ovens work wonders.
Go ahead and boop the like button on this video if it's being helpful and insightful to you thus far.
In general, there's always going to be new hot topics that content creators and influencers are going to jump on. And right now seems to be endotoxins and deuterium. You don't want to get OCD about any of this stuff because it'll drive you up a wall. Long story short, if you eat enough healthy animal foods and fats, it will deplete your deuterium, which is good. And if you have a healthy gut, which low inflammatory diet, blood type diet, things like that, are going to keep you from absorbing too many endotoxins. Don't think people who don't want to touch receipt paper are crazy. I'm one of those people. Don't touch receipt paper. especially the ink. Don't go crazy about it, but just little stuff like that. Minimize a few things, because we're going to be exposed to it no matter what. Like I said, with the polyester in some of my clothes and some of the microplastics probably in my drinking water. You can't win them all, but definitely minimizing will help. But don't obsess over it. Don't get crazy over it. Use some minor precautions here and there. Like there was that book, I believe it was called The Invisible Rainbow, that describes how certain diseases spiked at the time when radio frequencies changed, and every time they would upgrade, like to the first generation, to the second generation, the third generation, that certain ailments would keep going up. But that's a very loosely based science, and there's a lot of like correlation studies aren't very reliable, because at the same time, so did like vegetable oils and hydrogenated oils enter our diet more. Anti-fertility foods like corn flakes and sugar, processed sugar, kept going up and up and up in those times too. So it's hard to... Correlation studies aren't the most reliable, because there's so many other factors that can go into it. But the one correlation study that you can't ignore no matter what, with, like I mentioned, with the synthetic estrogens and chemicals everywhere, and the poison in our food, and the EMF, we are in a toxic soup, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. That is one correlation, all in all, we can definitely put a stamp of approval on. And something I almost forgot to mention, ever since the Paul and Alpha Talks have been talking about the parasite thing, which is good, and it's extremely interesting. However, I started seeing more comments surface about ivermectin. Oh boy. So, when the demic happened and the Team B, the controlled opposition on the alternative platforms, started talking about different compounds and stuff like that. And see, I was so convinced about the shedding thing too. The shedding thing freaked me out, and they started saying like, "Oh, I'll just say mectin here for the shedding," and they even said, for the people who believed in the vid, in the virus, they said it was good for that too. And so I just noticed that they were pushing the horse paste. I'll call it the horse paste too. They're pushing it like crazy. And alongside of it, they were always pushing a few other compounds, which natural medicine wise are actually really good compounds. Like quercetin is pretty good stuff when used properly, with other what are called bioflavonoids and vitamin C and polyphenols and cofactors from plants that can help with certain antioxidant, anti-inflammatory processes in the body. However, I was wondering why they were pushing like certain things along with the horse paste. And there's a reason for it. But anyhow, going back when they started pushing that at first, I was like, well, I'll look into it. I'm going to do some research on it. And it took me about 30 seconds to find out that the mectin was not good for testosterone production or fertility. Whereas, okay, like say you're a 45-year-old man and you don't want any more children, or woman, you're a 35-year-old woman, you don't want any more children. Oh, not fertility it sounds okay to you. Well, it's not okay, because the vital hormones that make you fertile are vital hormones that prevent disease and aging and things of that nature. So you don't want any type of anti-fertility compounds in your body at any age. And it turns out that quercetin in particular turns off a few elimination pathways and enzymes in the kidneys and liver, kind of similar to what grapefruit juice does with medications. to prevent the mectin, the horse paste, from being cleared from your body properly in a certain amount of time, which raises the anti-fertility action of the medicine. So you have the sharp thing that's definitely going to cause fertility issues. And then on the other side of the spectrum, let's get the right-wing hopium Q-tards.
Oh, look! A dandelion! Must be the last one this season.
with the horse paste and sterilize them that way. It's very well planned. You could almost say diabolically planned in the little season. Yes, anybody who is making comments about how you can get it on Amazon.com, the horse paste, and take your own dose, measure it out. No, do not touch that stuff. That stuff is not worth it. I've said my piece.
As the Talmud says, I don't give a shit what he says, okay?
Like the video if you haven't. And one more thing while I'm at it, since we're kind of in this category, I'll talk about blue light for a quick second. You don't have to wear blue blockers all day. Like during the day, the blue light can actually keep you more awake and alert. It's when you're winding down. If you're gonna put on a pair of blue blockers, probably the best time to do it would be like after dinner or like 3 to 4 hours before sleep. You can throw those guys on, and you can get a pair for like $20 on Amazon. They are really helpful. So if you are using your device close to bedtime, the light's still not good, but at least you have the blue blocked. Yeah, definitely don't wear those all day. You need a spectrum of different lights. You get them all from the sun, but if you are exposed to a computer screen or an LED light before dinner up to the early afternoon, you're fine. But yes, blue blockers do have a very nice time and place. They're a very useful device.
Editing Dan here again, and I am actually a fan of red light products too.
And another tip is just to have a plant in your house. There's a lot of microplastics in the dust, and a plant can help, like a yucca plant or any type of good tropical indoor plant can help purify the air. I'm undecided on whether air purifiers are beneficial or not, so in my opinion it's best just to get a plant. That way you're getting the benefit of additional oxygen, and a good way to ensure that your body's filtering out the microplastics properly is don't add to it through diet. Like chicken unfortunately does have a ton of microplastics in it, but fortunately beef is superior protein for me, for sure. I don't know about you, but yep, editing Dan again. I guess I just won't shut up. But the beautiful part of beef that nobody talks about is, unlike swine and chicken, even if a cow is fed oxidized seed oils, the most unhealthy, arguably the most unhealthy form of oil, they still process it into relatively healthy saturated fats. They convert it into the type of fatty acids that the human body can assimilate and basically requires most. So with stuff like cattle, bison, sheep, you're getting that conversion into the healthy saturated fats. Whereas with the swine and the chicken, they are what they eat, and they're going to store those unhealthy, oxidized omega-6 oils. It's going to be everywhere in the diet, but buy organic when possible, especially with like Dirty Dozen items. I would definitely buy organic apples. I would never eat a non-organic apple. And you still wash the organic ones real good too. Blueberries, I would go organic. Frozen blueberries are actually quite affordable. Broccoli, not necessary. You can get broccoli non-organic. And depending on who you ask online, the carnivores will definitely say no. They'll say it's a toxic flour, but broccoli does have some compounds in it that supposedly do help detoxify microplastics and xenoestrogens. I don't believe in themes or times of month or times of the year to start things like this. You're ready when you're ready and stick to it when you start. However, this is diet, nutrition, fitness and exercise for people of faith and believers. In this little season, the devil has really complicated things for us. And he's basically hijacked our God-given survival instincts against us with all this abundance of quite delicious processed food. And he's made exercise extremely difficult and confusing for people who want to invest the time to do it. Let's keep our expectations modest and not bite off more than we can chew. I'll try my best to make this as straight to the point as possible. If you are underweight and malnourished, ensure that you're getting adequate protein. I know I said that chicken is high in microplastics in the other video, which is, like I said, Satan makes all this stuff so confusing.
The devil himself. This guy was a real jerk.
But yes, a couple times a week you can have chicken. You can focus on eggs if you can digest and tolerate them properly. Beef is my favorite. And if you want to add calories as easily as possible, pour olive oil on everything and drink good quality fruit juice with every meal. That'll get your calories up in a hurry. There are some people that followed the wrong protocols and got, unfortunately, underweight, but I won't spend too much time on that. I said my piece on that. For cutting, and an interesting note before I talk about cutting, which means losing weight, getting rid of visceral fat and the subcutaneous fat in the bad areas. Visceral fat in this little season isn't even taught in medical school. If you don't believe me, look it up. But in the standard medical school, to become an MD protocol, they do not cover visceral fat. Some doctors will actually look at scans and see that people have a custard filling inside them and be like, what is that? that is sad. But yes, visceral fat is the real thing, and it's the most dangerous fat. Hence why the devil is hiding it from our medical trained professionals. Anyhow, for cutting, you want to focus on protein as much as possible. The more protein, the better. Choose lean meats, and there's light cheeses. And if you have processed meats like deli meat, have some vitamin C with it. That'll neutralize the toxic nitrites and actually help convert some of it into nitric oxide, which is a beneficial compound that can actually help with visceral fat reduction too. If you're cutting, the protein is key, and you want to watch your carbs. You don't have to go low carb, you don't have to go low fat, but just keep an eye on those two macros. Keep those in check and make sure protein is always highest priority. And the more you learn your body and how your body feels, the more, like a pregnant woman, the more you'll know what you require. Like when I was doing really high protein, I like my meat salted, so I was eating a lot of meat, and just one day I was just craving fruit, especially watermelon. I went out and bought a couple watermelons, almost ate them all. I was probably lacking some potassium or something like that. And speaking of which, fruit and meat is a very ideal diet. If you have sensitivities to things, meat and fruit are basically the lowest risk of allergens. Like dairy can cause a lot of allergens, eggs can cause a lot of people trouble, fruits and vegetables too, vegetables.
But fruits in particular are normally very neutral. Like me, for example, for some reason, I don't do well with pineapple. It makes me itchy. But for the most part, for most people, most fruits will be fine. Because fruits want to be eaten. They want to be eaten. The Almighty Father designed them to be eaten by mammals, including his favorite mammal, the mammal above all mammals, us. And bread was designed for us to eat too by the Most High God. But unfortunately, the good old devil, you know him.
I mean, this guy was a real jerk.
He messed it all up, and now it's GMO and hybridized and extremely high in pesticides, and it's just not the same bread. If you haven't been specifically diagnosed with gluten intolerance, I would try sourdough. I still avoid all gluten like the plague, but if you still want to enjoy your bread, try sourdough. Good quality baked sourdough bread you might have less of an issue with, because I'm sure all the ancient grains were fermented in sourdough bread anyhow. So eating bread baked in a more traditional fashion will definitely help you digest it better than standard wheat products. But if you do notice an intolerance to standard wheat products too, that may be something worth trying. The big trend right now is everybody's talking about how seed oils are extremely toxic. And yes, for the most part, they are.
At the present moment of how I'm operating with my diet, the only seed oils I will consume is raw, unroasted pumpkin seeds or walnuts. No roasted nuts. And if I buy the pumpkin seeds or the walnuts, which I don't prioritize either, right now I'm doing a lot more pumpkin seeds because I have some. But in the fridge immediately, and never roasted, and high quality olive oil, and the rest of all my fats come from either goat or sheep cheese or beef.
Olive oil is mentioned many times in the Bible, and it's a beneficial oil, but unfortunately, almost 90% of it on the market right now is rancid. And like it arrives in stores, in the bottles, already rancid and oxidized. So with olive oil, sometimes you got to pay for quality. If you're worried about that, you might want to get some of the more high-end olive oil. Olive oil should have a fresh smell and kind of burn your tongue a little bit when you taste it. The problem is when they mass produce it, they're using big olives, and quality non-oxidized olive oil should be made of smaller batch, smaller olives. And so yes, the seed oil craze is justifiable because they're extremely high in calories. They're extremely high in omega-6. They're very inflammatory. They have no nutritional value. Like if you're going to eat some raw pumpkin seeds, that's great. That's a good seed oil in its unbastardized form. Because even nuts are technically seeds. I'm a fan of pumpkin seeds and walnuts, and you obviously want to consume them. Buy them as fresh as possible and consume them as quickly as possible, because that's the main problem with the seed oils, besides the high omega-6 content and some of the chemicals used in the processing, like hexane, is that they're already bad. They're already rancid, and that just it's literally like gunking up your body. It's terrible. Your gut and your heart, basically all your organs, will not be happy. And on that note, some people feel they really, really, really have to eat like an extreme variety of foods to get all their nutrients. Problem with that is to incorporate all this wide variety of foods from around the world into your diet. You'd have to consume a massive amount of calories. So if it's variety versus keeping your calories in check, keeping your calories in check and staying lean is way more important. If you're trying to cut calories and that 360 calories of olive oil is in your diet and keeping you well over your calorie limit, that's an easy fix right there. Get rid of the olive oil. That's just an example. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of us can get away quite well with mostly meat and fruit and avoid the dirty dozen fruits. Buy them organic whenever possible, or just don't eat the dirty dozens if you don't buy them organic. It's literally more poisonous than beneficial, in my opinion. But yes, for grains, if you can digest grains, kamut and spelt, you can get those noodles, kamut noodles and spelt noodles and flours at most grocery stores. Be careful with them though. They're really high in calorie. They're easy. Pasta's easy to overeat. Same with rice. Rice is a really neutral food. Most people can digest it just fine. The arsenic content of it being dangerous is very overestimated and overemphasized. It's far less dangerous than some influencers would have you believe. It's very, very, very trace amounts. But rice will fatten you up. Why do you think sumo wrestlers eat rice? So be careful with rice. It's extremely calorie dense. Especially if you get it at a restaurant, because they're putting oil on it too, guaranteed. Seed oil. With calories, it's easy. Just think of if you buy some stuff online, and then you go to the grocery store and you might stop for some gas and a knick-knack here and there, and then you come home and you're checking your account, you're like, whoa, look at all this money I spent. You weren't really tallying it up at the time, and that works for calories. Don't graze or snack. Rest. Let your body rest between meals. You can call it a little mini fast, but 2 to 3 meals a day without any snacking in between is more than sufficient, and focus on protein for those 3 meals. And then let your insulin do what it's got to do and let it clear out by itself before the next meal. In regards to supplements, I've basically tried them all. I've been a supplement fool over the years, and the more you learn about the stuff, the more you don't know. The more you know, the more you don't know. Like recently the supplement NMN was very popular for anti-aging and energy production, and come to find out now that NMN takes a lot of methyl donors from your body, takes a lot of methylation out of your body. So it's best, if you're taking that, to take it with TMG, trimethylglycine, which is a methyl donor. And there's so many other processes that we don't know about. I like TMG. That's a great supplement.
The way the Most High Almighty God designed things is no fancy dietary supplement is a cure-all or is too good to be true or anything like that. Every action has a reaction. That's almost proof of the Father in himself, that he didn't make any hacks in our body that can make us live longer than he designed us to. We can optimize our body to ensure we live as long as he designed us to, if that makes sense. But every action has a reaction. You can't biohack the way he created you. So nothing is too good to be true in that regard. Yes, there are certain things that can help, but the benefits are highly, highly overemphasized, and you basically have to take them for years on end to see really good results. He focused on the foods. If you want a great multivitamin, eat organs from healthy animals, preferably cattle, especially if you're a blood type O.
The more you know, the less you know. And I've tried them all, and honestly, and I'm not gonna, I still take a ridiculous amount, but they're not necessary. They're really not as necessary as you think. The bare essentials, I'd say, would be a multivitamin, a good multivitamin capsule from a good reputable company. Like here in Canada, the Sisu would be a good reputable company. For omega-3, maybe 1 krill oil capsule a day. That's a lot less likely to be oxidized and a lot better absorbed. And if you're feeling spunky, you can get some good quality probiotics. The more strains, the better. And obviously get them refrigerated. And vitamin D during the winter time. Hopefully your multivitamin has enough vitamin K2, and there's no real need, because a lot of those vitamins are synthetic anyhow, but they do cover the bases. So the The devil's really gotten us, man. Ugh.
I mean, this guy was a real jerk.
We're darned if we do, and we're darned if we don't. I'm a big fan, actually, of the blood type diet. I've been doing that quite to par for many years now, like almost 20, until I removed the years where I was a drunk. But the blood type diet, and the one thing I'll give it credit for is almost all in all, some exceptions with seafood, that the forbidden foods in the Bible are gone by default. They're not they should be avoided by default in that diet, which I found pretty cool. It's not necessary, but if you know your blood type, it could be something to look into. It's ddadamo.com, and he's got all his resources and food values there. And to the forbidden foods, that's absolutely the Most High God's dietary guidelines are extremely important in my book. I don't know when swine was allowed for believers again. Like shrimp, crabs, any insects of the ocean, catfish, eat fish with scales, and good healthy animals. And the nations that eat the most forbidden foods are the ones that are furthest from being believers. Like the current residents of like northeastern Russia and China. I know it could have been a lot different about 700 years ago, but the current residents there, they like their horse meat and all kinds of abominable meat. Like, how could we forget the bat and the turtle soup or whatever?
COVID-19! 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 I'll blow the wind of God!
I don't think that's what... Anyways, that's not... But still, it's not healthy, regardless. But yes, the Most High God's dietary guidelines, and other than that, he just, like, there's obviously documentation of eating bread, hence I mentioned the sourdough, and fish in scripture, and wine, and olive oil, and of course lamb. I think my mouth just watered when I said lamb. That's a very beneficial meat in my opinion. I heard they get a lot of jabs, but what can you do? Like, what can you do? But other than that, the Most High basically just told us, like, not to be gluttonous, but ask that he bless our food and that we be thankful for our food and not stuff our face. Because another example of a nation that doesn't really follow an ideal diet would be India. And they have a huge problem with insulin resistance there, especially in southern India, I think. The majority of the men are like skinny fat. You ever notice that? They got that pot belly and the skinny little arms with no shoulders. Basically the opposite look of what any man would want. And they don't eat enough protein. They eat a lot of rice without protein, and they have a lot of vegetable oil. Rice and vegetable oil. And they have that visceral fat, pot belly, insulin resistance look. Thank goodness they at least have some spices like hot peppers and turmeric, because that might at least offset a tiny bit of the damage, but definitely not all. And yes, since I'm on that, spices are great. Ceylon cinnamon, paprika, turmeric, ginger. I'll emphasize it again. Protein, protein, protein with every meal.
Protein is bad for you if you get more than 15% of your calories from protein. That's not good for your health.
And stay away from any fat loss medications. They're going to cause a lot more harm than good. They're going to catabolize a lot of your muscle mass. And as I'm going to get to shortly, you want to preserve as much muscle mass as possible when getting lean and staying lean. Something I forgot to mention in the last video about the chemicals and stuff. I used to always rinse my plates, drive my Bubba and my mom crazy. I would rinse my plates before I used them, and it turns out I'm vindicated because there's some research that there is a lot of residue left over from dishwashers, and they recommend that you rinse your plates. I was 20 years ahead of you guys. And when it comes to diet and fitness, never bite off more than you can chew. Make sure that it's sustainable and you can do it for the long term. You've seen it just as many times as I have, if not more. People that get really motivated and really dive into it, and they want to work out this many days a week and track their calories this much and only eat these foods, and it's not sustainable. Life happens, SHIT happens, and it's not sustainable. Do things that are sustainable, that you know you can do for the long haul. If you see that your minimalistic approach, that you've been able to do it for a long period of time, then maybe add a few more healthy things here and there. Healthy things that doesn't necessarily mean you add, that can mean eliminate stuff too, but don't overburden yourself. This is a marathon, not a sprint, even though sprinting is healthier than marathon running, especially for visceral fat. I'll get to that in a sec.
But the spiritual warfare aspect is so huge in this too. Always ensure that you're praying daily for what you require and rebuking and commanding demons to go in Jesus' name. Because your flesh and bad spirits will tempt you in other ways. When you eliminate things, they'll try to get you in other ways. We're always fighting with the flesh and the unseen realm. So don't get too overconfident. And always try to keep yourself in a balanced in check. And always pray.
And speaking of medications too, I almost think this hormone therapy and testosterone replacement therapy is like an agenda. Because, first of all, TRT, that means testosterone replacement therapy, does increase visceral fat. And if you've seen any guys like between 40 and 50, just think of Joe Rogan or the wrestler Randy Orton, what he looks like now. They have this bloated face and a big gut, and they're always red. Same with that JP guy or whatever, JP Spears. He used to be really funny when he was just like natural, and he just looked like a natural person. But now that he's got like this roided out red face with veins popping out of his neck, he's not quite as funny anymore. I'd say Carrot Top, but he was never funny.
You are making a movie with Carrot Top, right?
I made a movie with Carrot Top.
Okay. But what's the movie going to be called? Really?
I know what it's going to be called.
Yeah, what's that?
If it's got Carrot Top in it, you know what a good name for it would be?
What's that, Norm?
Box Office Poison.
Title undetermined at this point.
Chairman of the board.
Oh, all right. Do something with that, you freak.
I bet the board is spelled B-O-R-E-D.
Not to mention that TRT makes you infertile, and once you're on it for a long period of time, unless you go on a whole other thing called PCT for a long period of time, you're basically dependent on it for life. And what if something hits the fan and we can't get our stuff anymore? You're gonna have people in testosterone withdrawal and losing all their muscle and crying. And yes, God does say that alcohol is okay, but that's basically just a little tiny glass of red wine. I abused my privilege, and I'm not allowed to have it anymore. When I drink wine, a little glass, that would just be a gulp. So one of the most important factors in exercise for men or women, and for longevity and ensuring you're strong and you don't break any bones and you keep your bones strong, is weight training. And I don't want to get too big. You're not going to get too big. Nobody gets too big. You have to be a genetic freak to get too big. You don't get too big. I lift the heaviest weights I can possibly lift, and I can't get too big. So don't worry. You'll be okay. You won't get too big. It's a little pet peeve of mine. Since I'm such a misanthrope, I bought heavy dumbbells, and I have a home gym, but any way you can get, just ensure you're training every muscle group once a week, close or to failure. I get a lot of flack for this, but my secret that keeps me consistent forever, not forever, but you know what I mean, is 1 set per muscle group to failure once a week. Sometimes 2 depending on the muscle group. So I'll do dumbbell press and then incline and decline flies. And I'll do military press and then lateral raises, because sometimes one exercise doesn't hit all the muscles in that area properly. So I'll usually do pull-ups with straight pulls. And legs. Legs are the most important, especially for longevity. You want your legs as strong as possible. And the beauty of your legs is the bigger they are, the bigger your quads are and your hamstrings are. Those are especially your quads, those are your biggest muscles in your body. If you can get those larger, they're basically like carbohydrate sponges. If you want to keep the fat off, you want your quads to be a respectable size, because they will hold on to a lot of glycogen, and they will use the protein that you eat for protein synthesis to keep them strong. They will help your body use all those calories. And as I alluded to earlier with the marathon running, for long jogs and long runs, not to mention that I personally get injured doing that. It's terrible for my knees, and I can't stand it. Walking and or high intensity interval training, just something really intense, like running up and down the stairs as fast as you can. It doesn't even have to be intervals. Just do it until you're out of breath, and then go for a walk. Or just walk. If you don't feel like doing the high intensity stuff, just lift weights and walk. The lifting weights will take care of the high intensity stuff. But long, medium cardio is actually really bad for visceral fat, your internal fat, because it raises cortisol. If you ever seen like those marathon runners, they don't look like in great shape. Their muscles are quite emaciated. If you don't want to join a gym and you have workouts, want to do your workouts at home, a pull-up bar for your door frame is an essential in my book. It's great for stretching. You can stretch on it once a day and let your legs hang. It really decompresses your spine. And if you can't do pull-ups, you can get a band, but one thing I like more than a band for people who can't do them is do the negatives. So jump up to do your pull-up or chin-up, and then focus on the negative. Fight your way down back into position. That will get you stronger, and hopefully you'll be able to do pull-ups non-assisted. You won't have to jump anymore. Track your progress. But yes, I can't emphasize lifting enough, and we don't want to do it for vanity purposes. Not at all. But we want to be strong and capable of action if the Most High requires it from us. And yeah, there's nothing wrong. If you start to look good, there's nothing wrong with checking yourself in the mirror, if you have a significant other, getting a compliment from your wife. But you know what I mean by vanity, like the social media ridiculousness. Because even some artistic depictions of Jesus, he was pretty ripped. He was a carpenter. He kept through his youth, he kept his muscles active. Peter too. You see some depictions of him, and he's got some pretty jacked arms and thick forearms, and because he was a fisherman. So yes, implement more healthy tactics if you require it.
And besides a standing desk too, which is nice, one of these non-smart ones, just a good old-fashioned step counter, they can be a godsend too. Just so you can gauge where you're at. You don't necessarily have to take 10,000 steps a day, but it's a good indicator of your activity level for the day.
Do what you enjoy and still eat some things you enjoy. Like, who doesn't like meat and fruit? Like I said, you can get most of your nutrients from just meat and fruit. Obviously, organs are the most important part of the meat, but if going back to supplements, if there probably is a supplement that actually is worth getting, which is basically a food anyhow, it would be like an organ supplement. Like, you can get beef liver if you hate liver. It can help fortify your diet that way. Unfortunately, it's ridiculously expensive. If you can eat the organs, more power to you. Like, for example, chicken hearts aren't that bad. And microplastics aside, the benefits of chicken hearts outweigh that for sure. But do what you enjoy. I enjoy walking. I love walking. And I lift weights. And it's as simple as 1 or 2 sets to failure per muscle group. Lift heavy. If you're not grunting the last two, or you're not making faces, record yourself. If you're not making faces, you're not training hard enough. Besides the walking, obviously. I'll emphasize again, start as easy and sustainable as possible and add difficulty, time consumption wise, once you know you can manage the load. This stuff takes a lot of time, and if life happens, or you fall off and have a cheat meal, or you have to take a week off, that's fine. Get back on, do it again. Don't just give up hope. Know there's going to be bumps in the road. Know there's going to be roadblocks. Know you're going to have to take a break here and there, but stay at her as much as you can. Keep stress to a minimal, and don't stress yourself out worrying about that. And sleep. Sleep. If I have a choice between more production in a day or getting more sleep, I'll always choose more sleep. Because good sleep will make you more productive long term. You'll get more done in the hours of the day that you are awake. I can't emphasize enough the restorative powers of sleep. I was talking about testosterone replacement earlier. Not getting enough sleep is like missing your natural shot of TRT that the Almighty Father supplies us with. Don't miss that shot of the natural stuff, because that is good for removing visceral fat and keeping your stress hormones down. And I talked about grazing and snacking between meals. I used to be guilty of this until my metabolism told me to stop. Don't snack in the middle of the night. The only time you can snack in the middle of the night is one day a week, and that's if you do a full body weight training workout that day. If you do a full body weight training workout, intensity to failure, that one day a week, that night, you can have a high protein snack in the middle of the night. Other than that one day, never. Unless you're hypoglycemic or something and you require sugar. Be extremely careful who you follow and listen to in regards to diet and fitness advice. There are a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing.
A lot of protein supplements, but later I realized that they are not good for health. Even protein shakes are really bad.
Can you elaborate?
It takes 3 years to digest one scoop of protein shake, by the way. It stays in your body.
Check out my video on demons, the unseen realm here if you haven't seen it, or one of my other latest ones, Jesus Power in the Little Season. That's a fun one there. And subscribe to my second channel here if you have not yet.
And may the Father's Holy Spirit protect you and guide you and keep you strong, and peace be with you.